The recent decision by Spain's Supreme Court to overturn certain provisions from the Royal Decree on Gambling Advertising came quite as a surprise. The court's ruling also promises to have quite an impact on Spain's online gambling market, of course. To put this development into context, we've brought together a very knowledgeable panel who is consisting of, first of all, Xavi Muñoz, partner at ECIJA, who you've met before, Mauro de Fabritiis, the founder of MDF Partners, and Joerg Hofmann, who is IMGL past president and senior partner at Melchers Law. But before we get to the panel discussion of this session, Xavi will kindly explain, at some length even, the details of the court's ruling. Xavi, welcome, and please, panel, welcome to the stage. Please take place here, and Xavi will kick off with your presentation while your colleagues will also take place on stage. So Mauro, if you can sit in the middle, Joerg on that side, on the right, then we have a space for Xavi on the left later.
I will offer a coffee today.
Go there?
Ah, okay.
Thank you, Xavi. Mauro?
Okay. We decided, well, sorry, I don't know.
It makes perfect sense. Please go ahead.
I start. Okay. Hi, everyone, again. We decided in this panel to explain a little bit the advertising restrictions, well, in the legal limbo after the Spanish Supreme Court decision, just to frame a little bit that situation so that then we can, debate on it. So, okay, so let me explain a little bit. I start the other way around, which is for the questions, and then we'll talk about the articles that have been annulled. But I think about the articles, most people more or less knows which are the articles. But maybe we can discuss on the main questions first. First thing is the grounds of the annulment. And basically, it's the principle of reservation of laws and freedom of enterprise. I mean, these are the main grounds. Actually, Jorge could explain more about this because one of the organizations that filed the appeal against the royal decree is J Digital. So I'm sure you have worked very much on these, on all these principles. So basically, the reservation of law, it's maybe there's in two senses. One is if the Spanish general law gave enough coverage for the royal decree. So this is one thing. If the Spanish law, which had a ranking of law, was enough to issue that royal decree, this is one thing, and this is what the Supreme Court says no. It did not have enough coverage to issue the royal decree. And the other thing is that if you wanted to make these new restrictions which had not enough coverage, then you should have done it by means of a law and not a royal decree. You should have used a law which is, of course, uses more secure proceedings through the Congress, through the Senate, so it's more strong proceedings and more safe for the community, so to speak. The other principle is freedom of enterprise, and I think this one is a very important one for the sector because the first one is more like a procedural thing which can be amended and can be sorted by the government. But the freedom of enterprise, I think this is more crucial for the sector because it goes into if those restrictions were proportionate or not. Okay, so if not allowing a sector to do publicity, which basically was, or to do very little publicity with a lot of restrictions, if this goes against principle, which is in the Spanish Constitution, which is the principle of freedom of enterprise. Within the principle of freedom of enterprise, there's the principle of the right to do publicity. Because if you want to set up a business and run a business and you cannot do publicity, then it's a bit difficult. So this is a more like consistent principle. The other one is more procedural, but this one is more has more substance. And the reason I'm saying this is because if there's a new law to come, if the government wants to put other restrictions, that's maybe more the principle that will have to be fought with to make sure that those restrictions are proportionate and not exaggerated and not and not going against this principle. Okay, so where can I start the publicity? Well, in strictly legal terms, it's when the decision is published at the Spanish official gazette. Okay, this is the strictly legal terms, which will be any time from now, you know, so we're just waiting for the day. But it's true that if you would start now, it's difficult for the DGOG to put a fine to an operator that starts now, because there's already a decision from the Supreme Court of which they have been notified and they know perfectly. And there's various articles in the administrative laws that would make it very difficult for the DGOG to put a fine. But, well, they could start and they could try it, and this could still create a problem to the operator who would have to defend himself. But we think it's quite remote, this risk. So you could start from now, okay? Anything to take into account? Well, we think because now there were so many restrictions, and so you didn't have to think too much about you know, your marketing activities because it was so restricted. Now that it's open, I think you really have to take into account all the other regulations, so that to make sure that you comply with all those as well. I mean, there's laws which affect as the general audiovisual communications laws, as you know, like the time frames where you can do publicity. This may affect the share video platforms like YouTube or other which are audiovisual. So there's things to be checked. It's not like now that the articles have been annulled, it's not like that it's open to do anything. I mean, of course, there's still other laws which have other restrictions which you have to comply with. The Gambling Communications Code of Conduct, as you know, this is a code that was existent before, and now that the Royal Decree, well, has been existing all the time, basically, but now that the these articles have been removed, still there's some articles of the code which apply and may affect you, so you have to, your marketing teams have to take a look at that. Royal Decree on Safe Gambling, for example, it has restrictions of promotions for young players. So even if the article of promotions has been open and now you can offer bonuses and it's open still, this law, there's restrictions for young players. So be careful to whom you offer those bonuses. So still you have to look into these other regulations because otherwise you can fall into an infringement. Other ones, well, electronic communications laws, Ley de Sociedad de la Información, as we call it in Spain, of course, it's always present. Personal data protection laws, sometimes maybe because there's been a period with all these restrictions, maybe you have not been getting the right consent to send commercial communications or send other things in this period, and maybe now you want to do things, and maybe you have to look at the personal data protection laws to make sure that the users you want to target, you have the right consent and everything is right now that you want to retake these activities. So you have to take care. What's the government reaction we can expect? Sorry, because I'm gonna go a bit faster. What's the reaction we can expect? As we mentioned at the beginning, trying to pass the articles that were annulled, trying to pass them through a law. And as we said at the beginning, let's fight for the freedom of enterprise. In that, if this process is open, I think that's what the sector should fight. You know, and I'm sure Jota Digital has it very well in mind. So freedom of enterprise and proportionate system. What is going to be the business impact in the market? I think we can discuss this in the panel, so I'm not going to go really in depth into it. However, I think maybe some comments from the audience would be very interesting, because there's big operators, there's the smaller operators, there's the budgets for marketing, there's operators that the restrictions maybe were good for them because they were not spending a lot in marketing and they were working more on retention, and they had some very good loyal clients and were doing a good business out of there. And now there's big operators with big budgets for marketing, so there's again a big fight, so maybe it's not good for them. I don't know. That would be very interesting to hear from you guys as well, if someone wants to share his experiences. Then on the articles, the first two are on promotional activities. Basically, this one, 13.1, now that it's been annulled, is the one that permits the issuance of bonuses, welcome bonuses, because the other, the retention bonuses were still, you could still use it. So this is for trying to get new players. I mean, they don't need to be a client and for 30 days, and they don't need to be verified documentally. The second one is also to be able to do these promotions. It's also lifted. You can do to anyone. It does not have to be only existing clients. Article 15 is about famous people, so you can use famous people in your publicity. 23.1 is basically, doing marketing online on the internet, information society services in general. So this is one that opens up very much. So now you can do it. As you know, before it was very restricted to special websites, only with content on gambling. So it was very restricted. Then 25 is about being able to do marketing video sharing platforms such as YouTube or others that also have their video sharing section. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, they also have Twitch. They also have their video sharing sections. And also they can be considered as video sharing platforms as well. And the restrictions can apply to them at least for the section that it's video sharing. So they are not only social networks, but they're also video sharing. For the section that affects video sharing in this other platform, because sometimes we only think of YouTube, but it can also be Facebook, it can also be Instagram, it can be also other social networks, which are also video sharing platforms. Next one is about social media, that now you can also do publicity, both in the official, in the operator's official accounts, and also in other accounts or channels from other users. So I think that's it as a framework. Sorry, Burke, if I went too far. That's okay. Thank you.
Well, I have to say that was a perfect introduction. It doesn't happen very often that a Supreme Court is annulling and lifting major parts of regulation. It's something unique in every jurisdiction, and it has a big impact on regulation, on the industry, even on the player. We will be discussing this. And I also learned it's quite complicated. I think it's very important that you pointed out it's not a total annulment. There are no rules anymore. There are rules, but we have to identify which rules are still applied and which not. This is what we will be discussing in a few seconds. Again, thank you very much. Xavi, for a proper moderator, the first obligation, of course, when starting the panel discussion is to introduce the speakers. Now, you've been introduced already, but I tried to learn to pronounce your name and the name of your company for many, many months, and I'll have to prove that I was successful. So, Xavi Muñoz, okay, and the company where the head of the gambling department is the Spanish and Latin firm ECIJA. Correct?
Perfect.
Say it again.
ECIJA.
Okay, almost perfect. Thank you very much. I'm also glad to welcome you as a long-standing, experienced IMGL member. Well, thanks for your loyalty. And well, secondly, Mauro, Fabritiis, we joined the panel together last time in Berlin, I guess, when you shared your insights on German regulation, which is also very interesting. And it was a pleasure to talk to you. You are the founder of MDF Partners, which is an advisory, consultancy firm based in Spain and in Italy. You're specialized in business and regulatory advisory services, and not in the gaming industry, of course. And your advice is not only appreciated by the industry, but also by regulators, which you advised, or your firm advised, in Spain, Italy, France, and Colombia. So this is it for the introduction. We're now diving deep into the matter, into our topic, which means it's complicated, as we've seen. It is something where we have to really figure out what can we do now, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Or probably you can give us an explanation of what you think is the map of allowed and not allowed things, and what is the impact on the industry.
Thank you, Joerg, for the question. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Willem, for organizing this effective event. And good question. because it's now we are in a situation where we moved some step in a direction, and we are maybe coming back, and so there is a moment of need to understand for the market. Essentially, 5 relevant points have been potentially changed of the current regulation in Spain, and it deals with the welcome promos, with the use of famous, with the display advertising, with the streaming platforms and the use of social networks. What will happen? Operators right now are already reacting, because it's quite normal that when the situations from a regulatory perspective changes, it's a given for the market to use the time to market, and even operators that will not in the position to launch, for example, the welcome bonus, will follow a Me Too strategy if other operators will launch the bonus. So at the end of the day, we are not in the final situation, because who knows what happened from a regulatory perspective. But there is room for the Spanish market, in my opinion, creating a balance from what is allowed right now and what is not allowed, to create the conditions to grow more. We have compared also the Spanish situation with the other markets, making a comparison. If you want, we can.
Oh, please.
It's just one chart. Just to look at Spain from, let's say, a global perspective. We have included in this chart, which is the situation right now of other regulated jurisdictions in terms of the most used, let's say, tools for advertising. So. Search engine marketing, affiliation, sponsorship, TV, radio, social, and promotions, which is the situation right now. Spain is within the 5 countries considered close in a certain way to the Italian situation, where the ban, the advertising restrictions were introduced at the beginning in 2018. And Spain was the following country, and then other countries in Europe followed. But many of the actions are now possible in Spain in terms of SEM, affiliation, social with restrictions, but with no restrictions according to the last to the last event, and promotions. Potentially not, still not limited to in the welcome part. The situation is different for Italy, where sponsorship is completely forbidden, and in Spain, in a certain way, is the same, but with some things that are allowed. For example, in Italy, it is allowed to use sponsor with the name of the brands, but not with the exact brand and with the lettering. And you need to associate the brand not to gambling, but to infos or to other elements not gambling related. Other countries like France, UK, and Portugal are slightly limited compared to Spain and Italy. But we can say that TV and sponsorship is forbidden in all the countries considered.
Right. Let's do a sort of a general approach on restrictions of marketing and advertising, and not just limited to what happens in Spain. Think, how do marketing restrictions impact the regulated market? I'm asking these questions because we cannot lead such a discussion without thinking of the black market. whenever there's a regulated market, there are black market operators, at least trying to target customers in that country, and more or less successful. So advertising is sort of communication among the stakeholders and the players. What's the impact of restrictions for the market in general?
I want to do a premise on this point, because I remember when the regulatory process started, because I had personally the opportunity to follow the Italian, I'm Italian, and so the Italian regulation since the beginning, the 2004. And I remember that one important rule of the advertising, at the time the regulation started, was to make the customer aware of what is legal and see the difference from legal and illegal. So the advertising, it's a way to promote the legal offer against the illegal or irregular offer. That was the main task. And when the regulatory wave started around 2008, 2010, the restrictions in terms of advertising were not a common topic to speak about. But then, when the regulation comes into force, many of the countries, and Italy, as a pioneer, started with the restrictions, introduced some measures affecting the way operators can promote or cannot promote the gambling. Why? My personal answer is that looking at the data of the gaming market, the online market started to grow enormously compared to the brick and mortar, to the retail. And politicians that in the first stage of regulation were worried about regulate and create a legal offer to fight against the illegal, were at that time worried about what about the growing of this market that is so impressive. We have to, in a certain way, to stop the growth and create measures to avoid the overexposure of people on the gambling and the growth of a market that is potentially dangerous. That was maybe the principle and the feeling. But what happens is that the market is growing anyway within the restrictions. And so maybe the excess of the restriction is creating a damage to the industry, because we should remember that the gambling industry is an ecosystem where we have the coexistence of operators, customers, regulators, technical providers, and the state. If we, in such a way, affect this equilibrium, this could create really a damage, I repeat the concept, for the industry, and move the customer preference from the legal to the illegal offer. So the concept of channelization, that was the principle of the regulation in the early stage, could be negatively affected by the way the different governments, in a different way, in the different jurisdictions, are managing the advertising restrictions.
So it's a bit about informing, education, telling people this is legal. That is one aspect of advertising and marketing, and the second one is maybe promoting, being competitive with black market offerings. Xavi, as an industry lawyer, long experience, you've seen...
Let me say something on the black market first, if I may.
Yes, I just want to raise this question, but there you go.
No, just short. The black market, the regulations in Spain, I think are quite good for the black market, because they say that anyone that collaborates with black market will be jointly responsible with a company operating illegally. So this affects payment platforms, this affects online media companies, Google, Facebook, TikTok, etc. This affects lawyers. If we collaborate with the black market, we can also be jointly responsible. So this affects anyone that. So this makes that media companies try to stay away from black market. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think it's not so much the advertising restrictions that favor the black market, but it's more sometimes the technical and operative restrictions. Like, okay, you have to pre-configure your account, that you will only play for a certain time, a certain amount, the deposit limits. It's the playing restrictions that favor more the black market, because there's some players that just decide to go elsewhere because there's so many restrictions technically and operatively that they go. It's not so much for the advertising, because the black market, they don't advertise very much because the media companies just don't take them. They don't want to touch that. But just to say that, but it's more maybe the other restrictions for the players that like to play, and
Okay, so then just focusing on the regulated market, when the old decree came into force, what happened to the market? What happened to the industry in the beginning when all these, I would call them restrictions, all these provisions applied and the industry had to be compliant? Was there a big difference to what happened before? Also in terms of channeling?
Yeah, I think the operators had to reduce their marketing teams, first of all, because basically, you could not do a lot of things. So yeah, I think maybe the experience on the operators on this is very important, because I imagine they focus more on the retention of their clients than acquisition, because acquisition was more difficult. So for new players, it was difficult to generate a database. And the ones that already had it, they focused more on retention. So I think that's more the effects of when the royal decree started. And of course, you could not do much. But the market did not really slow down. I mean, the market, I think, some people maybe have some good data of the market, but some operators found that their EBITDA was better in the new situation. And also the market in some areas, it grew as well. So the impact is not that clear, yeah.
Okay, talking about these restrictions and of course the impact, is there also a negative impact on the lifting of some jurisdictions? Would you see a side which is not appreciable?
Yeah, from the business perspective, I don't know. It's hard to say, because of course I am pro freedom of enterprise and being able to do publicity. But then in this sector, if it's like no one does publicity, then that's the game. Okay, and it's a different game. So you have a much lower expenditure in publicity. If the competition cannot do it, you are in the same rules. And maybe that in the figures, on the balance sheet, sometimes this can be better. But I don't know. I imagine it depends on the circumstances of every specific operator and their plans for Spain.
Would you make a difference between smaller and bigger operators?
I think there is a difference, and operators. This sector is global. They look at countries worldwide. They look at Brazil. They look at Mexico, Asia, other countries. Maybe they think Spain is not longer of interest for them, or maybe they see now there's a battle coming and they'll have to spend a lot in marketing and media. Maybe they feel it's not of interest. Some operators may decide that they prefer to go, or some may prefer to come in because now they can do acquisition. Before they could not do it, so now it's a market that they can do publicity to acquire. So I think definitely that the big winners are media companies and the players. These are the big winners about the lifting of the advertising restrictions. Players will get a lot of bonuses, and advertising, media companies, will get, make more money from the operators.
So we see operators will react. Mauro, is this a time frame? So a window is open. Now we can aggressively target the customers in Spain for a while. until new regulation probably comes up and being in place. What do you think, how should the industry collectively react to the lifting at the moment? Returning to the old advertising practices or being a bit more mindful, perhaps, for instance?
Yeah, based on the experience of different countries and even Spain, one big capacity that operators have is to adapt. So it's the reaction of the operators is to adapt. It's a need, their model to the specific regulatory requirements. For example, in Spain, is now maybe possible to offer welcome bonus for the acquisition. The market already reacted. We have developed, for example, a market intelligence tool called Promo Sherlocks, and we detected that in the Spanish market, the majority of the operators are active with the welcome bonus right now. What will happen in the future? We don't know, but the market, the offer, will react and will exploit the time to market and will adapt the model within the specific constraints. There is another point that Xavi was mentioning before, and you provoked, Joerg, the question, and for me it's interesting to deep dive. It's the competition between different regulatory systems, between jurisdictions. What about, for example, multi-country operators? It's more convenient to stay in Spain or in UK or in Portugal, or to move to Brazil, depending on the regulatory restrictions. On this point, I think that differently from the past, the advertising bans in different way are a common topic for all the countries. So it's not exactly a matter of deciding where to invest, but to adapt the model according to the requirements, the specific requirements we have in that specific jurisdiction. For example, in Spain, it's nowadays, especially if the new measures will be not cancelled by a law in the future, there is the possibility to be competitive, and as I told at the beginning, the market has room to grow, because the incidence of online on the total is 13%, that compared to the majority of the regulated markets in the world is a low figure. So there is a potential for the market to grow. And in terms of next steps, for sure, operators should find the way to more and more to differentiate their strategy, to fine-tune the results of their marketing actions, and adapt the marketing strategy and the business model from time to time. So the data-driven approach is something essential. I appreciated the speech of Aviva at the beginning, where you focused on the 3 key elements for a company to take into account: the customer, the brand, and the technology. The advertising restrictions have a direct action on 2 of the components: the customer and the brand. Of course, the technology could help to drive the business model and to act in the best way. But the risk is that if the regulation is not coherently managed with regard to what is prohibited and what not on the different area, operators will not in the condition to have a sustainable business. And this will be a problem that will affect negatively all the ecosystem.
Right. There will be changes in the future. Do you think there is a dialogue between the industry and the regulator or the lawmakers, just discussing what could be amended, what could be optimized in the situation, or is it just two sectors not communicating with each other?
In the past, regulators have demonstrated they are open to have a dialogue with the operators, and I think that this dialogue will continue in the future, especially for Spain. I think that the GOJ has learned a lot from the market experience and has been quite open during these during different years to have info feedback from the market. Now, there is in the middle, it's not only a matter of regulators. We have the politicians, the regulator, and the market. So it's the issue is where is the politician and which is the politician's goal, and this is really what is affecting and will affect the market for the future. But I absolutely believe that a strict dialogue between regulators, politicians, and operators should be favored.
Right. Thank you. So you introduced some of those provisions which were removed. Do you think there are some restrictions that should be accepted by the industry or even welcomed by the industry? Advertising restrictions?
Well, as I said, I think the industry looks very much at at their numbers, and yeah, maybe this it's a bit linked to what we mentioned before. I mean, maybe some restrictions as long as they apply to everyone and to the competition. So like we all not do that. Maybe for them it's good. Maybe the fight on welcoming bonuses and a very fierce fight on that. Maybe it's not that good. Maybe if the bonuses were limited at 50 euros or something like this, that not all would only do the same. Maybe for some operators, not for all. I mean, of course, if an operator just got a license and wants to advertise heavily and make a market share with the next period of time, because maybe it's an operator that is quoted in a stock market, wants to sell, or it depends on their specific plans. Maybe for that operator will not be good. But yeah, I think there's some restrictions that could be good to the market. But this I would like the audience to say, because it's not me that want to put restrictions to publicity. But yeah.
I think it's about the details. It's about mindful regulation. Bonuses is a very good example. We have that restriction in Germany too. The maximum bonus per player per month is 100 euros as a welcome bonus. Sorry, I think it's per year. And this is not competitive, because if you look at the internet and look at affiliate sites, probably the illegal operators are not allowed to advertise on TV and radio and printing companies, newspapers, but there are affiliate sites and you find the information, and the bonuses are 500 euros, 1,000 euros, something like this. So it's probably about being or establishing a system that makes the industry competitive and is not too binding, not too restrictive. I think that's the discussion, the point of the discussion. We see, if you look around in other jurisdictions, more and more people advocating, politicians advocating in favor of internet or in favor of advertising bans, including total advertising bans, such as in Italy. Most recently, I think it's just a week ago, the Bulgarian government voted in favor of an internet, of an advertising prohibition. What do you both think is the reason why politicians are always dealing with the advertising issue and usually claim for reducing as much as possible? Maybe you can start.
Yeah. No, before answering, I want to add something to the
Sure.
point on welcome measures. Maybe I want to be really short in the answer, but maybe it's good to have everything that is not affecting let's say the sustainability of the offer of the operators. The customer decides what is good and what is not good in terms of offer. So the regulated offer should be comparable to the illegal one. So this is the general rule. Regarding what should be allowed, for sure the measures that prevent overexposure to gaming, and protect the minors and vulnerable people. These are for sure desired. For the rest, we should keep the equilibrium.
Right. Xavi, any amendments?
Yeah, I see the Man in Black has approached, but I think we still have a bit of time.
We have 1 more minute and asking for questions.
No, you mentioned about politicians and all that. Yeah, this is very bad for the sector, because it's always good for politicians to say they will restrict this sector and focus on problem gambling and all these only. And talking on the dialogue with DGOG that you mentioned before and politicians, the past years we have had governments, pretty much, against the industry, and the dialogue has existed mainly through Jota Digital, which conglomerates many of the operators, and maybe they can explain better, but it has been difficult in the past years. And I think the DGOG and the government would do good in being open, given the fact that the Supreme Court has repealed these articles, and this is a fact. They should be not take it totally negatively, but more constructively, and being open and learning from what has happened the past 2-3 years. Of course, they would have not changed this at their own initiative, but now that it has happened, I think they could learn from these 2-3 years what has worked, what has not worked, and see, as you said, try to find a balance. Trying to find a good, proportionate situation.
Can't agree more. I think that's a wonderful conclusion of this panel discussion. These were my questions. Are we having any questions from the audience?
And actually we do, thank you. Some fantastic insights and information here. I think we have 2 questions from the audience, and the first question was, and I think we're looking at the middle of the panel here, but to everybody, of course. What level of advertising do you think is necessary to compete with the black market, and are we getting that in Spain?
Yeah, it's a good question. And in one short sentence, let's look at a .com operator and the offer. And let's look at that country. The customer should be, in theory, able to choose the best offer, and the .country offer should be at the same level of the .com one, unless we have a risk that people from the regulated offer should move to crypto casino. We have never mentioned, spoken about crypto casino, but this is the dangerous thing. If the offer is not quite competitive and quite satisfactory for the customers.
Anything to add, Xavi? I guess it's
not only marketing, but I just said before, player experience as well. Restrictions on the player experience, as well, to fight against black market.
Yeah, I mean, it's the customer experience.
Yeah, to be attractive.
Right, we have time for a second quick question here. So, what can we expect from the PP regarding advertising rules, if and when they gain power? That's a conservative party. So. Any crystal ball answers here? Also from the room, if you have an opinion on it, please raise your hand.
Nobody knows, but it's important to remember that the gaming sector brings a lot of money into the pocket of the state in any countries. So no one has decided right now to stop the activity. And governments and state are earning money from the industry, so it's required to leave the industry work like other sectors.
Xavi?
Yeah, I think that if PP would be more favorable or more have a higher degree of acceptance of the gambling sector and all this, I think the decision of the High Court is very good, because now the ball is in their court. Okay, the articles are annulled. So now a political party has to do something to reinstate them and to regulate, but now they are annulled already. So the PP, just by doing nothing, it's just allowing this to happen. So I think the situation is much better for them. Instead of initiating a new legislative process to ban some articles, because then the media and all this, would all be against them and all this. But now that's the situation they find. So.
Maybe it's a good topic to discuss during the coffee break that we have now. Xavi, thank you very much. Mauro, thank you very much. And Joerg, thank you for moderating. We see you back in 25 minutes here in the auditorium, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joerg. That was super nice.